So this is episode number 8 of our IG Live series. And we created this series just to, talk about things that women surgeons want to hear about, provide unfiltered, candid conversations, and just provide a space where people can come to get mentorship and inspiration and everything. So today we're going to be talking about matching into surgery as a woman of color. And we have two amazing speakers tonight. Okay, just waiting for Dr. Hester. Okay, but how about you go ahead and introduce yourself while we wait for Dr. Hester. So we have two speakers tonight. One of them is none other than Lauren Catteral, soon to be MD, graduating from med school next month.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Catteral. I am a student at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill School of Medicine. Will be graduating next month, and I recently matched into plastic and reconstructive surgery at Southern Illinois University. I'm so excited and really just feel super fortunate to be able to have this opportunity, not just to chat with you all, but to also have matched this year. It was a really competitive process, and again, I think anyone who's interested in plastic surgery, there are so many ways to do it. So if this was not your year to match into an integrated program, please do not give up. You can go through general surgery. You can apply again. There's so many ways. So I'm excited to chat with everybody.
Awesome. And we're just going to wait a few more minutes for Dr. Hester. But Dr. Hester is a second-year resident, and she has an amazing and super inspirational story, which I can't wait for her to share with everyone. Oh, there she is.
Trying. Oh, there we go.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We're good, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so Lauren already introduced herself. Would you mind introducing yourself to the audience?
Hi. Hey, everyone. I'm Carrie. I am a second-year general surgery resident in Danbury, Connecticut at Danbury Hospital, and I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. We're really excited to have you. Okay. So my first question for tonight, and either one of you can take it, or we can both answer the question. Were you ever discouraged from applying to surgery based on your gender and ethnicity?
I do not mind starting us off on this question. So I would not say that I was ever outright discouraged. I would say that as a woman, sometimes what I would get was, do you really want, just kind of doubt questions, or are you sure you want to do all that? Or do you really need to do all of that kind of questions of, oh, you can have a great career and not kind of stress yourself out in the operating room or specifically pick that path. I don't think anyone ever said don't be a surgeon, but just sometimes I would get the kind of doubting, are you sure? Maybe there's something else for you. Keep your mind open and explore all choices. But I will say that I've heard some individuals discourage their daughters from going into surgery and suggesting to them, like, oh, well, maybe just go be a PA instead, or don't go to medical school, like PA school's better.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. I don't think anyone ever told me to not do it, but there was always like the, oh, but don't you want to have a family? Like that, you get that a lot. And like you still get that even now, especially when you're trying to decide like what to specialize in. And I mean, it definitely does factors in a role, but then you also, I feel privileged to see so many female surgeons around me now more than ever who are doing it. And they're like, it takes a lot of work, but you can do it. And, you shouldn't let people discourage you from doing it. But there's definitely like oh yeah, like, are you sure? And you're like, yeah, I am. Actually, thank you.
I'm experiencing so much of that too. And I'm just grateful that you guys are going ahead of me, and that you are proving to everyone that you can be a female surgeon and you can have a family and you can do it all and still be happy. So thank you. All right. My next question. During your application and interview process, do you did you face any challenges that you felt were unique to your gender and identity?
Yeah, I mean, so we're definitely going to talk about this later in the interview, in the chat, Jamisa. So yes, I was pregnant during the entire application process and during the match. So that's certainly unique to being a woman,
Yeah.
and starting a family. I would say with respect to my ethnicity, it's, I think because I chose to go into plastic surgery specifically, we have wonderful attending representation, and there are some phenomenal Black women plastic surgeons out there. Dr. Woodbury, Dr. Sears,
Yes.
phenomenal women that I spoke with. That being said, I have some peers who kind of looked at the residency cohort to say, all right, how many other people of color are in this residency program? And they were able to kind of weight that in their match list. And just because there are so few women of color in plastic surgery, and especially in residency, that just wasn't something that I considered heavily, because there just aren't very many of us. So if I were to say I only want to go to programs where they already have a Black resident, I mean, that's a very few number of programs right now. So I didn't really consider that process. And I definitely kind of asked and thought about what kind of presentations were being made about diversity and inclusion. If it was brought up in the presentation, I definitely thought that school kind of might be on a path that I would want to contribute to. If it wasn't brought up, I might ask about it. So I would say from that perspective of just considering the programs and considering where I wanted to be, it definitely influenced it. And then I would say in my application and in my personal statement made it pretty clear that I wanted to work with communities of color. And so if there was ever a program that didn't value that, then that wouldn't be the place for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. I don't, obviously when you're applying to residency, there's a lot of things that people cannot say. And of course, like it's just illegal and they shouldn't be saying certain things and they can't ask certain questions. But of course, like you do your due diligence and like you're able to, feed off of energy and off of people and you talk to peers and you talk to, friends and, see kind of what the reputations are out there. The one thing that I will say is that just in general, as we all know, even I'm sure plastic surgery is an even smaller cohort, but even just general surgery in general, any surgical specialty, with maybe the exception of OB, which has a lot more Black female representation. Like there just isn't a lot. There aren't a lot of us who are in surgical subspecialties or a surgical specialty to begin with. And so we're already just a small, unique group of people that I obviously hope to see continue just to grow and flourish. But, so I think it does kind of put, not really at a disadvantage. I actually like to think of it as a challenge just to see how much more we can grow and how we can just show that we are all stars and we're amazing Black women surgeons. But, you don't have that same necessary support, and you don't necessarily have that same representation. And so I felt very fortunate. I did a prelim year, and so I remember one of my first few days starting to meet as a prelim intern, meeting some of the faculty, and one of my chiefs of vascular surgery was a Black female, and I was like, what? Like, and she's like phenomenal. And just even having that one face in this space was so critical. And there's very few faces like ours in our hospital, but I think if you can have at least one face, even if it's female or not, even if you just have someone, I think that's very important. And also when you're talking about women of color, like even this year we recently had another one of my new attendings, she's Hispanic, and even having that representation has been so huge because they go through the same things that like we go through. And so just being able to relate to her as well. So I think it's difficult because there aren't a lot of us out there, but I think just you're able to kind of find the people who you know will be supportive and who I like push my program director all the time because I feel very comfortable doing so. But I'm like, we need more Black people. Like, we were. And he's like, Harry, I know. And I'm like, but we do. But I also feel grateful that I have a program where I can be outspoken about that. And my program director is now looking at me sideways. He's like, yeah, you're right. Like, and I've, come up with ideas about getting like, a sub-I for fourth years to come in who are specifically, medical students of color. And he's like, all for it, so just making sure when you're going on interviews, asking the questions about like, in terms of like, is this something that you would support? Because then you can kind of gauge like, if, do you have any residents that are sitting on the diversity committee at your hospital? Does your hospital have a diversity committee? Those are the questions that you can ask, that even if there are no necessary Black or Hispanic or minority faces in the program, but you'll be able to kind of gauge what kind of support, if you found yourself there, that you would still have. So.
That's true. That's a very good point. And it's one thing to have more Black women coming into the field of surgery, but it's another thing to actually have programs that are more diverse and are open to having them, because you don't want more people coming into the field and being uncomfortable. So I'm really happy that you have a program where you are really comfortable and that you can be an advocate like that.
Absolutely.
So my next question: how are you able to identify mentors to guide you through the residency application process?
Yeah, so there is an organization called Women of Color in Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, WALK PRS, and I would tell anyone interested in plastic surgery, truly anyone, and especially if you're a woman of color, check out their Instagram account. They were fundamental in me identifying mentors, reaching out to women in the community, getting honest and open advice, not just from individuals in my region in the Southeast, but across the entire country. And of course, I had some fantastic mentors right at home at UNC, Dr. Adeyemi Ogunle, Dr. Lynn Damitz, and Dr. Jahan Wood. They are just my absolute squad here at UNC. I'm so sad to be leaving them, but they were all fantastic mentors. And so for those who may not have a home program in whatever subspecialty that you're interested in, I would say use social media. The fact that we have these Instagram accounts and these Twitters and these websites now, feel free to just reach out to surgeons who are doing what you're doing. Send them a direct message, reach out to them on Twitter, send them an email, and just introduce yourself. Tell them what you're interested in doing, and ask if you could, have maybe a 15-minute call or 10 minutes, just something really short. You don't need to make the email long. Just let them know you're interested. And attend conferences if you can. You don't always have to be presenting, but those are phenomenal opportunities. Just meet people face to face, introduce yourself, get some emails, be ready to kind of follow up with them the next day. And I think those are all great opportunities for you to just learn from others and hopefully get your name out there as well. When people can kind of put a face or a persona to the name that they see on their application, it can really make a difference.
So true.
That was like awesome. I completely like second that. Definitely reaching out to like professional organizations, obviously Association of Women Surgeons, and trying to identify a mentor that way. Also, I went to a Caribbean school, so we obviously don't have like a home base in the States, and so I think that makes it sometimes more challenging. But I was very involved in SNMA, and so that is something I highly recommend being involved with, is like SNMA, NMA, and like going to those conferences, like going to AMEC. Like AMEC was a huge resource for me, because, they have all of these various residency programs and like diversity committees from top residency programs in the country who are literally looking to recruit you. And so that is a fantastic way of, making connections and networking with people as well, which I highly recommend. And whether it's SNMA or, LMA or whatever it is, just, get invested. It is an investment, but it's an investment in your future that will pay off. Because there was countless people that I connected with through those conferences and just being involved in the organization that when I needed something, or if I needed a mentor, if I needed a contact, it was just made it so much easier. But also 100% agree, use social media to your advantage. I actually am especially for those who have Facebook, even though sometimes it can be just a lot of joking around, but YBAD is a really great resource. I've posted about, getting research opportunities with an upcoming research year, and people have been extremely helpful and got me set up with people. So tap into those resources. Don't be afraid. I think that's one of the biggest things, is that we can get very fearful of sending those emails and sending those messages, because you're like, oh my God, they're so busy. Do they have time? Just send the message. You have absolutely nothing to lose by doing so. So
yeah, the worst they can do is ignore it, and then
exactly,
it's fine.
Moving on.
That's so true. And I feel like most times that you reach out to women surgeons, they are more than willing to help.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Okay, so my next question. So, being where you are now and having been successful at, becoming surgical residents, in what ways can you aid others going through the application process?
Yeah, so I am always open to talking to literally anyone and everyone about the process myself. So if you ever want advice or just someone to listen to you or talk to about how stressful this process can be, feel free to DM me. I also give out my cell phone number all the time. So you can feel free to ask for it in the DM or email me. I'll make sure I put my email in the comments after this too. But other than just using me myself as a resource, I would say, again, the organizations that we just mentioned are all super helpful. And I certainly intend on continuing to advocate as a resident, and continuing to work alongside Walk PRS and with national organizations to create pipeline programs and to create specific advertising for undergraduate and medical students. And I'm also hoping to create links and messages and communication between graduate and undergraduate medical education. I think it's really important for us to kind of be working in tandem, so that we're not just on one side saying, well, how do we get our students to match? And then as a resident saying, well, how do we get our residents to graduate? You kind of need to be working together so that you can say, well, how are we going to get our medical students from that step to the residency step? And I would say on the national level, these conversations are kind of taking place now, especially within the last 2 or 3 years, where equity and inclusion and diversity have really been put on a pedestal, and people are now seeing what has been a long time coming, as far as, the leaky pipeline and not getting people where they need to be, and having a lot of people of color not matching. So we're kind of seeing that research and these type of things coming to light, and more things getting published about it. But the talking also needs to be backed up with actions, and not just committees, but then new programs. And then I think we need to track the outcomes of these programs and say, well, how are we doing? How many students are matching? How do the students feel about these incentives and these activities? So I intend to continue doing this for, the rest of my life. I really love the idea of being an academic surgeon, and that will absolutely be one of my research focuses.
Yeah, no, I completely 100% agree. I think going through the process itself, I think just making sure you're just tapping into all and every resource that you can tap into, obviously without it getting overwhelming. But one thing, even when it comes to like looking at personal statements, looking at your application, making sure you have multiple eyes look at things, because you can look at something and you can be an English major to the gods, but like until like you will still miss things. And so having, multiple people look at things, if you have a surgeon in your life, having them read through it to see, does this really make sense? Is this flow? Is it appropriate? Having friends read it for, is this engaging? Whatever it is, having multiple people kind of, look through your personal statement, proofread, everything. Because the last thing you want to do is show up with, an application that does not 100% truly represent who you are to the best of who you are, because you've worked so hard to get to this point. And so you don't want to, to overlook something that could have easily been fixed. And so that's one thing I definitely would recommend. One of the things that I think is also beneficial when you can is like having a group me, especially once you start on the interview trail. You'll start to kind of see the same names of people pop up, or similar faces pop up in the Zoom chats if things are going to continue to be virtual. And so especially if you're, if you see multiple people, of women of color, men of color, have a group me chat. Be like, hey guys, like I interviewed here, like it was fantastic, or the latter, whatever it is, having people who are going through this experience with you as not only a sounding board, but also as a support system can be incredibly beneficial and helpful as well. If you are at a school that has had someone match into the specialty that match into a surgical specialty that you are applying to, or just match in surgery, could continue to use them as a resource. Get feedback with them about like their experiences, and being able to utilize them as well. And so those are other things I would, definitely look for when you're just throughout the application process.
Yeah, the group me, group chat, iMessage, whatever is so real. Have that squad. And if it doesn't exist, don't be afraid to start it. Seriously. Being overly friendly, overly enthusiastic. Again, worst case scenario is just they ignore it. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But those are amazing tips, honestly. I don't know why I'm not taking notes, but those are amazing tips. So the next question is specifically for Lauren. So as you mentioned earlier, Lauren, you were in your third trimester of pregnancy when you had your residency interviews, which like to me is just insane. But you made it, you did it. My three questions for you. How do you feel that being pregnant during your interviews impacted the outcome of your interviews? What were the attitudes of the interviewers towards you? And what are your plans for balancing being a new resident with being a new mom?
Yeah, so I'll start off with how it impacted things and the outcome. So I was absolutely terrified going into it. When I kind of knew what my due date was and saw that it was in the middle of interview season, I had to kind of put that aside and say, it'll happen. I don't know how it'll happen, but it'll happen and we'll get through it. And there would just be kind of moments of panic of just, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Again, it'll happen. We'll figure it out, which is what we did. So I had a lot of help. Number one, support was crucial. My husband was fantastic. My mom and my mother-in-law were all here to help and support during that process. I know I could not have done it without them. So for anyone involved thinking about having a family or having kids, things like that, definitely just get your support system, start talking to people early, start letting them know, hey, I might need some help. I might need someone to grab the baby if they're crying or kind of help cook dinner. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I definitely was at first, but you need it. And most of the time, I have never had anyone who wasn't more than happy to help. As far as the outcomes, I would just say that it was the same as if I hadn't been pregnant, mostly because I've always known that I wanted to have a family and likely have a family during residency. So I would have been asking the same questions about, okay, do any of the other residents have kids? Has anyone had a child in the residency program? I would have been asking them anyway if I hadn't been pregnant. And I would say, as far as the way that the programs responded, I did not have a single negative reaction. I was terrified going into it. I was so scared about letting people know or saying something. And I actually went to a conference, a plastic surgery conference in October, and was visibly pregnant during the conference. And I was terrified going to that. I just thought, oh my gosh, people are going to judge me. They're going to think, how could she do this? I swear I did not have a single negative reaction. No one said anything bad. Most people were extremely encouraging. And I had several women go out of their way to speak to me and say, hey, I see that you're doing this and I'm so proud of you and you've got this. And it was just so uplifting. So way more welcoming than I could have ever expected. And Jamisa, what was the last one? Did I get to that one?
How do you plan on balancing being a new mom with being a new resident?
Yeah, so that's kind of the same. We'll just get through it. I've been talking to a lot of women who have children and women who have children in residency, just kind of getting advice, getting tips. And I'd say the most common thing that I hear is that it's hard. It's going to be hard. And so I've accepted that full-heartedly. I know it will be hard. I know I will be sleep deprived. I don't know if it'll be more than a regular surgical resident. It'll probably be at least the same. But I think the key for me and for a lot of new moms out there is just really letting go of that mom guilt, as far as being away from your child for so many hours during the day, and knowing that, yeah, you're away from them, but you're doing it to do a profession you love, to help people who need you, and to be a role model for that child. I have a daughter, and I think to myself, would I tell my daughter not to go after her passions because she wants a family? Absolutely not. I would want her to do it full-heartedly, and I hope to be that role model for her when she gets older.
That is that is just truly empowering, honestly. I remember when I saw you pregnant and I was like, wow, and you're doing all this, you're applying for residency, you're doing it all. So thank you for just being so inspiring and yeah. That is really empowering.
Don't worry, there were several times where I thought, am I crazy for doing this?
No, you're a superstar. Just a superstar.
I would say it happens. It will work itself out. It really does. The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely.
Okay, Dr. Hester, this question is for you. So I know that you didn't match your first time around, and a lot of students are in that position right now. But you went through it and then you matched after, and you're a PGY too now, and you're doing well. And it's just so amazing and encouraging to see the back end of that, coming from that place of brokenness and disappointment to still succeeding and being where you want to be. So in terms of your experience, what advice do you have for people who did not match into surgery this year in terms of coping with that, that disappointment, and also in terms of developing a strategy to, move forward from that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for those who are out there who are either enduring that or have also endured that, when after I didn't match, I had a lot of really amazing support. I feel very fortunate to have such a strong support system, just with friends and family and even just strangers. But a lot of people who I spoke to who were either, physicians or who have kind of gone down a similar path and had similar situation was delay does not mean denial. And I continue to tell myself that. And, I'm a person of faith. And so I knew that this kind of was just another part of my journey and that somehow, some way, God was going to make it happen. I just had to kind of keep pushing and keep believing and just keep working. But also definitely just being delay does not mean denial. This is not the end of your road is something that I had to continue to tell myself. He didn't bring you this far for you to fail, for you to give up. This is just something that's going to allow you to, add something else to your testimony, to your story, and to hopefully inspire others to know that if they come across a similar path, that they also too can make it, and they will make it. Tangible things. If you're fortunate enough to soap into a prelim spot, obviously that's always what I encourage. If you're not, because I know that there's still people out there who, soap spots go. I highly recommend, and I'll put a link in the message board to make sure that you're checking the APDS website, because new programs open up, new spots open up all the time. Like from now until July 1st, things will open up. Sometimes after July 1st, things will also still open up. And so just kind of keep your ear to the ground. If you are unable to get into a spot, like a prelim spot or a categorical spot that way, trying to get involved in some sort of research, scribing, anything to keep you in the medical field, and things that can help strengthen your application for the following year. One thing, I cold email people all the time. That's also the beauty of the internet. And, so if you ways that you can do this is, especially if you live in a city that you potentially want to stay in, if you have family, what have you, reach out to any programs in the area, reach out to any physicians or surgeons or stuff in the area, see if they're working on research, see if they have an interesting case that you could write up for them. Things like that, they'll be like, oh, wow, like you are really motivated. And you'll be like, yeah, I really want this. And then you'll find that they'll be like, they'll invite you to shuttle. They'll invite you to do various things. I think it's going to be a little bit better now that the world is opening up a little bit more after the pandemic. And so I think, obviously there was a time where, it was much more difficult to kind of get back into those things. But hopefully now that things are starting to open up, that will be a little bit easier. But getting yourself into a research position is a great way to kind of get involved, and also potentially have something to show forth for the year. Because the one thing you don't want to have happen, and this goes for any specialty, anyone who doesn't match, is you come to the next application cycle and they're going to ask you, what have you been up to this year? And you're going to be like, I was working at Target. Not to knock people who work at Target. I worked at Target for a period of my life as well. But to say, like, you want to make sure that even if you are working at Target to help pay some bills, that you're also, working on a research paper on the side somewhere. And, you could technically it's okay to be free labor for something like that. And then if you are fortunate to get into a prelim spot, just work hard, just come every day hungry, not to the point where you're trying to purposefully outshine other people, because when you're in a residency, you're a part of a team, and when the team looks good, that's what looks good. And so your hard work will show for itself. And so just work hard, come every day, stay late, do what you have to do, obviously still practice self-care, because we hear about these things these days, but just work hard, make connections, just continue to be hungry for it, because I already know that whoever's going through this, you don't apply to a surgical specialty if you're not a little crazy and a little type A. That's just kind of a fact. So just, work hard, and also don't be afraid to talk to your attendings. I think that I may be fortunate to come from to be at a program where, even as a prelim intern, I've had good relationships with all my attendings. I felt comfortable talking to them. I felt comfortable calling them about patients or just about life and applying and things of that nature. But making those connections, and it's hard early on when you're brand new, but just be genuine and just make genuine connections with your attendings, because even if the program that you're a prelim at, doesn't have a spot for you categorically the next year, your attendings have friends at programs, right? So although everything is a networking opportunity, and I used to hate being one of those people who, like, I don't like being like, oh, I just got to talk about myself, got to network. Like, that's just not the type of person I am. I'm just generally just like outgoing. Like, I care about people, so I just like to talk and meet people. But unfortunately, like, we're at that part in our lives where like you do have to network. Like, even as comfortable, uncomfortable as it may feel, that you're like out here like kind of selling yourself a little bit, but that's kind of it's unfortunately like it's what you have to do. And they know that because everyone has been through this, right? Whether it was for residency, whether it was for fellowship, whether it was for a job, like, have a lot of medicine at this point. Once you get to this level, it's really about who you know, because doors will literally open for you based on that. And so that's why it's important you're not just working when you're at, if you're at a program, you're working, obviously, hopefully, if you like that program, to stay there, but you're also working for those connections with your attendings, or not even just your surgical attendings, like with any attending in the hospital, because they probably have a friend who is a surgeon somewhere else, and they can be like, oh, hey, I know this great surgical resident, like, an ICU doc can be, a medicine doctor can be, or a cardiologist can be. Oh yeah, guy, there was this great, surgical intern who did a match, is reapplying. Like, you never know who is watching, and so always be on your best behavior, always work hard, treat everyone with respect. People make fun of me. Some of my friends in my program make fun of me in the hospital because they're like, you can't walk down the hall and like you're not talking to someone. That's because I talk to everyone, and I'm like, and like everyone knows you. I'm like, because I talk to everyone. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, but that's also like the person that, it's good to be, though, is someone who people know for hopefully a good reason. But you're just always trying to put your best foot forward, and people will see that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That was amazing. And thank you too for just persevering, and being successful. Because you could have given up. But like, it's just so inspirational that you kept going, and you're well on your way. And you're in an amazing place right now. So thank you both for being such inspirations.
Oh.
Okay, so my final question, to each of you: three pearls for medical students who will be applying to surgery.
Ooh. Yeah, three things. Again, I would say develop that support system early. And whether that is your squad of co-applicants, your family, your friends, your mentors, whatever that looks like for you, go ahead and just work on it and say, hey, I'm about to go through this process. It's going to be stressful. And either, thank them in advance or let them know I'm going to be depending on you. So get ready for emails, phone calls, texts, whatever it is. The second thing I would say is definitely practice. I also I don't like that idea of selling yourself and networking and intentionally going up to a conversation with, an idea of what you want to get out of it. But again, the other attendings, other applicants, everyone in this field and these specialties, they know that you have to do it. They have done it themselves. They understand what's going on. So don't be shy to go up and just strike up a conversation with someone. You don't have to rehearse a script of what you want to say, but maybe do just practice your short intro about yourself and say, okay, hey, this is what my name is, this is my school, and I'm interested in your program, or I'm interested in your research, or whatever it is. Maybe do a little bit of background work just so that you can start the conversation. And then the third thing is, don't give up. There will be times when you just want to quit it all and say, I'm done. I'm over it. Don't give up. Seriously, no matter what the outcome is, if it's not what you anticipated, again, that is not the end of your story. It just means your story is going to look a little different than what you thought it would. And honestly, sometimes that's the best surprise. I know that I certainly would not have predicted this for myself if you had asked me 5 years ago when I started medical school, what does this look like when you graduate? I would not have been able to tell you this. So accept that, roll with the punches, and never give up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with. I mean, those are so good. Like, you pretty much said everything that I would have said. Yeah, I mean, just 100%. One first, I guess, so first and foremost is take care of yourself, and however that looks like, because this process and just from going from medical school, the whole process that we go through from like high school up until this point, right? Because like everything is like pretty much preparing for this, like high school, undergrad, post grad, like masters or whatever, and then for people who go straight through, and then medical school, and then finally residency, and then beyond. Like everything it's a lot. We go through a lot. It's a very, very long and hard road. And only a few people, as much as people want to say, pretend as though everyone could do what we do, they can't. You are in the upper echelon of people in this world who are been given the blessing to be able to heal and take care of people. And so that's something to always remember, but it's also something so you always give yourself a little grace and give yourself making sure that you're taking care of yourself. And that looks like making sure that you check in with your support system. It's very easy to think that you can do this all on your own. Let me be the first. If no one has told you before, you cannot. You can't do it. You cannot. Like it's impossible. And so making sure that you're checking in with your support system. And sometimes it's just going home for a weekend, or taking that last minute weekend trip to see one of your best friends. However that looks, take care of yourself, because like I always say, this is so cliche, but you really cannot pour from an empty cup. And so you can't give the best to your program, to yourself, to medical school, to residency, if you're continually just like empty. You can't do it. You won't last. So it's important that you're just taking care of yourself, first and foremost. The next thing I would say is don't be afraid to ask for help. I think I said that already, but this is not the time to think that, once again, you can do it all on your own. But it's okay to, if you're not sure, if you're not feeling confident, or if you don't know, you don't have a contact, ask for help. There is always going to be someone, there's always someone to message, there's always an email to send. So don't let your own fear of rejection get in the way. And kind of along that note, but on a different note, imposter syndrome is real, and don't let it seep in. It is so hard, especially when you get here. It's so hard to, compare yourself to others, but you can't do that. You just gotta just know that what is for you is for you. Do your own thing. Don't try to be like the next person next to you. Obviously, if you have an amazing attending and you want to be like, oh, I want to be just like them. Yeah, you want to be just like them, but you also want to be yourself and be better, right? So, but you deserve to be here. I think this also one of the, I guess, would probably be my last pearl, is you deserve to be here. And so don't let anything that, anyone may say, you will come across naysayers, you will come across microaggressions, you will come across macroaggressions, just aggression, you will come across it. And there's going to be everyone has stories. You probably have stories as medical students, you're going to have stories in residency, you will have stories as an attending. It's just a nature of the game, but you deserve to be here. You are not an imposter. You deserve it just as much, if not more, than the person sitting next to you. So don't quit. Don't let anything stop you from reaching this goal and reaching toward this goal, because, you have people who are here for you. I'm here for you, and Laura's here for you. We're here for you to make sure that you also make it here. And then that, you know, you're going to pull the next group up right behind you, just as we're trying to pull you guys with us. So that would be my last thing.
Those were some amazing pearls. I don't see any questions from the audience. So I'm gonna go journal and write down like everything that you guys before my mind, because this was some like really helpful information. And just thanks to you both for being so inspiring. Thanks, and like congratulations, Lauren, on matching this year. And Dr. Hester, just like thank you for just being you.
Yeah, thank you, Jamisa. Thank you, Dr. Henderson, too. I truly, the imposter syndrome is so real. And even though I am always telling my friends, I'm like, why are you doubting yourself? Stop. I constantly have that negative dialogue in my own mind. So thanks for bringing that up again, because I always have to have my husband tell me, like, remind me that I'm okay.
Yep. And that's also like that again is like one, having an amazing support system, because there's like so many days that I'm just like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, especially like right now, coming to the end of like my second year, but really it's my third year, and I'm just tired like all the time, and I'm like, why am I doing this? And then like I'll get a text from a friend, I'll get a phone call from a family member, I'll, you know, someone will just be like, you know, just speaking words of encouragement. You're just like, oh, okay, I know I know I can do this. Like, it's gonna be hard. Like, this is only half the battle, but like you can do it. Just make sure that you just, you know, it's hard to do because, you know, your friends sometimes in residency, everyone's tired, so then everyone's like, like what are we doing? But then you have to like try to be like the positive one and be like, you know what, we can do this. Like, we're gonna be okay. It's a tough day, it's a tough week, it's a tough month, it's been a tough year. Like, but we can do this. And you can do this. We can do it.
Yes, we can. Well, thank you guys so much for for coming on. Any questions? We do have one question. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your clinical?
Is that like clinical, like your clinical years in medical school? Is my interpretation of that? Maybe.
Sure.
If it's referring to kind of your clinical rotations in medical school, I just think that time is really challenging for everyone, because the way that the grading system works for the majority. Oh, let's see. Was there an update? Okay, yes. Okay, someone said, yeah, clinical years medical school. So the majority of the way that the medical schools in the United States operate is that the first year or 2 years is usually pass-fail. Then you kind of take step one, USMLE step one, which is now transitioning to pass-fail. And then not every medical school, but a large majority of them give grades during that clinical third year and fourth year. So especially with step moving to pass-fail, there's going to be a lot of pressure on students' third year grades should that medical school provide grades. And so I would say the biggest challenge for me was kind of navigating that system. And I will be 100% honest. I think that although I don't have a better means of evaluating medical students, there is a lot of bias when you get to your clinical rotations. You could be a phenomenal medical student, do everything for your patients, and if your resident doesn't see that, or your attending isn't there, or you just don't really get along with maybe the person evaluating you, you just have differences in personality, your evaluation may not reflect the amazing job you did. And so the hardest thing for me was allowing that to exist and letting it go. Because if you spend your entire year or 2 years trying to kowtow and bend over backwards and manipulate yourself into these boxes so that people can get along with you, or that you're doing what you think they want you to be doing, not only are you not learning medicine and putting your patients first, you're going to be miserable. So when you can just let that go and say, you know what, I'm coming to work every day for my patients and to learn. And when you make those your two priorities, the evaluations will just be what they are. I would say they will take care of themselves, but I can't, you can't promise that they're going to be all honors or all the highest grade. But you will have that satisfaction of, I know I did everything I could and I helped people today. And that's enough. It's more than enough. So just let that go and do the best work that you can do.
That was a great answer. And one thing I'd like to add, I think what makes clinical years really challenging too is that you are at the clinic or the hospital for the entire day. And then you get home and you still have to study for your shelf exams or study for step two. So I think it's really important and critical, like in those years, to learn how to manage time very efficiently, to learn how to set boundaries. And I think, I mean, I haven't done residency yet, but I can imagine that that time management will be essential to doing well during residency. So if you need to get a planner, get a calendar, just figure something out. But for sure, like learn how to manage your time strategically during clinicals.
100%, because I will tell you, and I did not believe it. People were like, "Oh my gosh, you think medical school is hard? Like, wait till you get to residency." And I was like, "There's no way."
Oh gosh.
And then you get to residency, and you're like, "Oh, there was a way." Like,
This is the way.
there is a way. So like 100%, like if you master that time management piece, it does become beneficial, because not only like you think you're tired as a medical student when you go home and then you have to like study for shelves and stuff. Like try doing it when you've worked 16 hours in the hospital as a resident, and then you still have to go home and like study for your cases the next day, or like study for ABSCITE whenever that comes around, or your in-service exam. Like, so it doesn't stop. Unfortunately, it does get harder, but the key thing now is to putting the habits in place, so that when it comes to doing it in residency, you're already disciplined. You know how to do this. You know how to go to work and then still try to find some energy, a little more so to read a couple of pages of your textbook at night. Just a couple pages, because if not, you're going to be, textbook's going to be reading you, because it's going to be all over your face and all that fun stuff. And then the other thing I would say, coming from the perspective of now a resident who has to like teach and educate medical students who come and rotate with us, the one thing I will say, I guess this is like my little freebie piece of advice, is that it does not take a lot as a medical student to fly below the radar. It's very easy to do that, but in the same other end of that, it does not take a lot for you to stand out above the crowd. And so what I've seen is that over the past couple of years that I've been a resident, I think a lot of it was COVID and things of that nature. But, it's easy just to kind of do the bare minimum and like want to go home and study for your shelves and whatever, and like go to your 2 cases for the day and be like, okay, like I think I've done enough. And that's okay. But it doesn't take a lot more to be really prepared in the morning, have all your patient presentations down, taking that extra step to try to anticipate the needs of the team. And it's those little things that as a resident, and that you see and you pick up on, and you're like, they're doing awesome, like high marks for them, and it doesn't take a lot to do that, because you're more often than not, a lot of people, and that's fine. They just kind of want to just come each day and just do what they got to do and learn what they got to learn, and, keep moving through, which is fine. But a little extra, especially for people who want to go into surgery, a little bit of that just extra, just trying to making sure that like just anticipating like, I saw that the team mentioned that, this patient we need to make sure that this patient is walking by the afternoon, or we need to make sure that this patient, is, doing their incentive spirometer. And when you come back in the afternoon when your team is running over patients, you're like, oh yeah, like I would have just took so-and-so for a walk, like they're doing great. That little bit of thing, it's not even that like it was awesome that you took them for a walk, but it was that you saw the need of the team and you met it without having to be asked to do it. And so that's like free game for you guys, for you medical students out there, because it really is easy to just kind of like to really supersede everyone's expectations. And then it is true, and I don't know if it's fair, but we get more excited when someone is more excited. I feel like that's like a natural thing in life, right? If someone's really excited about something, like you get excited because they're excited, and like everyone's excited. So like, so it's like when we see a medical student that like is really invested and is really excited, like we want to teach more, we want to give them more, we want to invite them to a cool, interesting case or a cool, potentially cool, interesting consult. Like, and it's not that we don't want to do that normally, but we're more likely to do that. That's just kind of how life is. If we can see that someone also is like invested in what we're doing. So, and it doesn't take a lot to do that as a medical student, even though I know we're all tired, we want to go home, like, and that's normal. So do we as residents, but you're paying for this, right? We're in hundreds and $1,000s of debt. So like, why would you not take every advantage to make sure that you're getting the maximum out of your education and your experience?
True.
Thank you for the freebie.
All valid, all true.
I'm gonna go write down everything. So thank you guys so much for coming on tonight. This was an amazing talk, honestly. And for anyone who didn't get to see it live, I really hope that all the medical students and everyone applying to the match next year can come and access this, because it's an amazing resource. So thank you so much, and have a good evening. Have a good weekend.
Yes, I'm gonna throw my email in the chat really fast, just for anyone if they do want to email rather than use Instagram. I totally understand that. I'm sure it'll disappear really fast too, but there you go. All right. So on that note, good night, everybody.
Bye. Good night.